It was real stupid.
Polly, do you insist on like being in every episode? Come here.
Yes, of course.
I mean, he has to be. He was in the first one. Now he needs to be in all the others.
He is the star.
He's fully aware of it, that little jackass. Welcome to Sool Radio Oscar Roundup episode. I believe this is 3. Is this 3? It's 3. I'm Dan Carlin, and with me, as always, I have librarian, movie fan, and host of the podcasts, Did You Do Your Homework and Love Ya? Link is in the description. Martha Sullivan, how you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you so much for having me back. And I suppose this is only going to be episode 3 if you decide to release them in the order that we were recording them in.
I figure it's the most simple way of going about it.
Makes sense to me.
And actually, there is a reason I want to talk about this one because of what it follows. But this go round, we are exploring Nightmare Alley, the latest offering from Guillermo del Toro. It stars Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Willem Dafoe, Richard Jenkins, among others. My dude from Sons of Anarchy, Ron Perlman.
Yes. And Rooney Mara, who is out again for the first time. I feel like it's been a minute since I've seen her.
Oh yeah, it's what else was she in? Because her face looked familiar.
She has been in Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. She plays Lisbeth Salander. She was the girlfriend in 10 Minutes of the Social Network.
Is she the one who chews him out at the very beginning?
Yeah, she's the one.
Yep,
she's
okay.
You're gonna think that people don't like you because you're smarter than them, and they're actually not gonna like you because you're an asshole.
No, that is exactly what I'm thinking about. Okay.
Yep, I love her. She's great.
Oh yeah. I will always support anything Richard Jenkins does. He played the patriarch on 6 Feet Under. Mm-hmm. And that is how I will always remember him. And he always wears the same 3-piece suit in everything he's in. The movie follows Stanton Carlisle, played by Bradley Cooper. After the events in the beginning scene, in which he's dragging a dead body and burying it onto the floor, we gradually figure out the events leading up to that first scene, and also follow him trying to reinvent himself as a magician / con artist. So the reason I wanted to follow up our previous episode, which was Don't Look Up, with this one was because Leonardo Dicaprio was actually originally intended to play Bradley Cooper's part in the movie.
Interesting. I am glad that it shook out the way that it did, because I am just sort of naturally disinclined to trust Bradley Cooper. So this was a role where from the beginning I was like, I have my eye on you. And I don't know that I would have felt the same way if it had been Leonardo DiCaprio.
How does it make you feel that he turned this movie down to do Don't Look Up, though?
It feels right. Those, when you're looking at the two different roles, the Don't Look Up role feels more in his wheelhouse. And I don't know that he would have been as enjoyable in a period role as Bradley Cooper was.
Sure.
I have a hard time thinking about Leonardo DiCaprio wearing a fedora in a non-ironic way.
I mean, he kind of did that in Gangs of New York, but I get what you're saying.
But that was a while ago. I guess I have a hard time thinking of Leo now wearing a fedora.
Oh, mid to late 40s Leo. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I see what you're saying there. I did read somewhere recently, I think it was just in the comments section of the AV Club, that whoever the commenter wasn't fully convinced that Bradley Cooper could play anyone other than a CGI raccoon, but he was proved wrong.
I don't love Bradley Cooper. And it's because the first thing I ever saw him in was The Hangover. And
Mm.
just after that, I'm always like, I don't like you. I don't trust you. I don't think we're going on a great journey together. But the flip side to that is that I do enjoy watching him in roles where I'm not supposed to trust him.
Now, was this due to his performance or due to his character in The Hangover?
It was due to how good he was at playing that role. And also, wasn't he in Wedding Crashers? Isn't he the jerk fiance in Wedding Crashers also?
Yes, he was.
So it was like those two right next to each other. I'm like, not sure about you. I am going to just put up right here at the front. So far, Nightmare Alley is my favorite of the Best Picture nominees.
Same.
I loved this movie, and I saw it before the nominations came out, and I was kind of shocked that it made it into the Best Picture conversation. I'm thrilled, but I was surprised. Guillermo del Toro is my favorite current working director. I think he's one of the most visually interesting directors working right now. And this movie, even more so than Shape of Water, is like very self-indulgent of him.
Sure.
So it felt a little like it could have been too niche for the Academy, but I'm really excited that it is part of the conversation.
I feel like after The Shape of Water, he was taking notes of just like general feedback. He was like, all right, visuals, character work,
period,
maybe
piece.
Relax on the fish sex.
Although the internet does not want him to relax on the fish sex. If I have one complaint about Nightmare Alley, it's that I do wish that there was some of that creature work that he's so good at. When the first trailers came out, I thought that we were in for sort of a supernatural carnival ride, and
Sure.
It does not actually have a supernatural. It does, but it's a fake one, which also is kind of an interesting subversion. So really, this movie is working for me on all levels.
How do you feel about his growth as a director in the last 15 years?
It's interesting to think about that, because in some ways I do think that his strongest movies were earlier in his career. I think you would be hard pressed to find anyone who didn't consider The Devil's Backbone to be like a perfect movie.
But he did Blade 2, though.
He did what?
He did Blade 2.
Did he?
Yeah, he directed, I'm reading now, he directed Blade 2, the 2 Hellboy movies, which I actually did enjoy.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Oh yeah, Kung Fu Panda 2.
I mean, I think the thing about Del Toro is that he always is making the movie that he wants to make. And I think that as he has gotten, and I don't know that he is ever going to be like the most commercially viable director, but people, as long as people are willing to give him the money to make the weird stuff he wants to make, I'm super into it. Like Pacific Rim is not ironically one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh yeah, I fully support his desire to be weird and his desire to just try different things.
I also think that a lot of his movies, because they are so genre focused, end up getting kind of underrated. Like I think Crimson Peak is a brilliant movie, and I don't think it got the attention or credit it deserves because it's a gothic romance ghost story. Like it has it's hitting so many keywords that I don't know that it got the critical kind of attention that I would have wanted it to get. But then this is also the guy who made Pan's Labyrinth, which is another perfect movie.
Pretty sure we saw that in the theaters together. Oh
yeah, for sure. So yeah, in terms of his growth, I think he is becoming more of, I think the stuff that we're getting from him now is less diluted. Like it's more concentrated, his aesthetic. It's more concentrated, like his kind of indulgent storytelling, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, he's becoming more confident with his aesthetic and kind of growing. He's kind of coming into his own, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I was I watched this 2 nights ago. And yesterday it was just bugging me. Like, I really enjoyed it and I couldn't exactly put my finger on why. And it hit me maybe like half an hour ago. This movie reminds me so much of my favorite film of all time, Memento, just in terms of the nonlinear storytelling, the very heavy character work, the fact that the story is basically told in a circle. It starts at the end. You don't necessarily know that, but it kind of all comes together to the point where like a second viewing would be necessary just to put the rest of the pieces together.
It's also, I think that there's an argument to be made that Memento is a modern noir movie and Nightmare Alley is a like straight up and down film noir.
Couldn't agree more.
One of the things I would very much like to see. Dude, get over here. Come here. Polly, don't be a dick. Come here. I'm sorry, go on. That's okay. So there is a black and white cut of Nightmare Alley in the world that I would really love to see because Del Toro lit the movie like a black and white noir so that they could do it in black and white and all of the lighting would already be in like the right values. Which I think I knew that before I watched it. So I was kind of looking for that, but visually it does very much have that kind of 40s noir visual feel, even the color version. So I would love to see the black and white. It's why I know that this movie won't win Best Picture. I'm holding out for production design. I think it has a strong shot at production design. I think it has a strong shot at costume. Well, actually, maybe not costume design. I'm glad it's there. But cinematography, I think it has a strong pull for that. So I'm crossing my fingers for it for that one. Is it nominated for Best Director? Polly. It is not, which bums me out. But I also think we touched on this in one of our previous episodes. I think that's one of the ways, like this was an extra Best Picture nominee. I'm glad that it's in the category, but because it did not also get either adapted screenplay or director, unfortunately, I wouldn't give it very good odds on winning the big one there. Understandable. It definitely it's a wild card nomination, but probably in my favorite kind of way, where it wasn't nominated for Best Picture because it was commercially successful and would probably drive more people to watch the ceremony. But it was so unique in its aesthetic and its storytelling, just in the context of all the other films that were released, where it's not going to win. There's no way. Polly, I swear to God. Polly also has very strong feelings about this. How did you feel about Nightmare Alley, Polly? Huh? Yeah, I had two kind of out of the box hopes for Best Picture noms, and one of them was Nightmare Alley. The other one was unfortunately The Duel, which did not get almost any recognition by the Academy at all, which I think is unfortunate. Do you think the nonlinear storytelling was successful in getting its point across? I am not even sure that I would call it nonlinear storytelling. Like, the bulk of the storytelling happens in the present. Like, the A timeline is Bradley Cooper shows up at the circus, gets a job helping out, learns how to be basically a mentalist. Right. And then moves on from there. And then we have flashbacks to the scene that the movie opens with, which we eventually find out is his father, who is kind of intimated was abusive to the point where Bradley Cooper's character ends up killing his dad, burning down his childhood home. I'm sorry if this is a spoiler for you, but if you're watching a breakdown of the Oscar movies, I'm going to assume that you've seen them. I warned people in the first episode, and I don't feel an obligation further. So I don't know that I would necessarily call this nonlinear storytelling. It is definitely circular storytelling in that Bradley Cooper ends the movie in the same place. Like, he ends up replacing the circus geek in a scene. As soon as I knew where this movie was going, I got chills. Because when he accidentally kills somebody, is running away from the cops, gets on the train with all the chickens. That was the moment when I was like, oh, I know where we're going. I know exactly what's about to happen. And like the hair stood up on the back of my neck.
Okay. When that scene is revealed, I mean, and this is just my opinion, it spoke to me that I feel like the message was that like you can't run from your past. Regardless of how hard you try, that shit's gonna catch up to you no matter where you go. Like, no matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah, you can't run from your past, and you can't run from the consequences of your actions. Like, everything that he does puts him one step closer to putting him back to where he started. And the whole movie, everyone is telling him, don't do this thing. Like, don't pretend to talk to ghosts. Don't buy into your own con. And he does, because he thinks that he's the smartest guy in the room and that he's above it in some way. And Rooney Mara's like, you're done.
Can't escape God.
Can't escape God.
Yeah, it was, I liked how it got that message across without being super heavy-handed about it. And it showed more than it told. Yes. Despite like the monologues here and there.
I think it is heavy-handed when it needs to be. Like, Cate Blanchett is chewing a lot of scenery in her role as the sort of femme fatale psychologist, but I felt like it was appropriately doled out and like appropriately deployed. It was, I mean, it's a noir, so I did feel like it was over dramatic, but I felt like it was in keeping with its like film DNA.
It was within her character to chew on the scenery. It was a deliberate acting choice rather than somebody who didn't know how to play the material.
She was great.
Well, she's so good. So this is, so we've reviewed 3 so far. Mm-hmm. This is at the top. I'm assuming Power of the Dog is number 2. Which I'm just assuming Don't Look Down will be at the bottom the entire time.
Don't Look Up.
Don't look at, see, like, didn't even need to get the title.
Yes, I will admit to our viewers that at this point in time, I'm still watching. I'm still going through the Best Picture nominees. But just based on what I have heard and the caliber of the movie makers for the rest of these, Don't Look Up is really the one that sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, even if I hadn't watched it, that's a rough inclusion.
Yeah. I do want to go over something that was put in the news today regarding the ceremony. Mm-hmm. So hold on, let me pull, you know what I'm talking. I'm going to pull this shit up just so I don't get it wrong. So the COVID vaccine, it is not required for Oscar attendees or presenters, but it is required for people nominated within the categories. What is your take on that?
My take is that they want somebody to come as a presenter who's an anti-vaxxer. And that this is, they're not going to say who, because at this point, we have had some celebrities come out as anti-vaxxers, and I feel like the backlash has been such that at this point, if they are, they're keeping it to themselves. Oh, yeah. But I don't think you make that decision unless they're like, oh no, we want somebody to present this award. Right. And they won't get vaccinated, and we would rather allow that than change the presenter, which actually means it is probably one of the award winners from last year, because typically, traditionally, the best actor winner from the previous year presents the best actress award for the current year. Like, there's it's part of your, like when you accept an Oscar, it is kind of part of your agreement that you will like sign on to be a presenter in future shows.
Yeah, it's implied because I remember when Sean Penn won for Milk and then he got in trouble for saying something dumb. He fully came out and said, it's like, yeah, I'm skipping doing that next year. I don't want to make it uncomfortable for anybody.
And he probably had to pay a very large fine, which he didn't care about because he's still Sean Penn.
Yeah.
I kind of think it's unconscionable that they're still having an in-person ceremony. And if they were that, since they are having an in-person ceremony, I think it's ridiculous that they're not requiring vaccinations. Like,
yeah, like I had to show my vax card to take my kids to Denny's last week. So yeah.
Well, and last year, so oh goodness. I have a point.
I believe in you.
Anthony Hopkins won Best Actor last year. He did not attend the ceremony because he is an elderly man who is at very high risk for getting COVID.
Sure.
And they would not, there was some issue with allowing him to accept virtually, even though other people got to. That I don't remember exactly why he wasn't allowed to. I think possibly because they were so sure, everyone was so sure Chadwick Boseman was going to win posthumously. But this is the same Academy that wouldn't let National Treasure Anthony Hopkins accept his award virtually. So
yeah, like I would more understand like Anthony Hopkins choosing not to accept it virtually. So it's like, I've been through enough. I'm not talking to a camera. But yeah, that's just a weird decision on the Academy's part.
Yeah, and he was had offered to do a virtual like appear on Zoom should he win, and the Academy was like, no. Oh, I know what it was. They had like Oscar outlets in 3 different cities. So they were like, there was one in London, one in LA, and then one in New York, I think. So people appeared virtually at those 3 different locations. And Anthony Hopkins lives in Scotland. So he was like, I don't want to travel. Can I accept via Zoom? And the Academy declined. He still won the award. He just didn't get to speak about it until later.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting leading up to the ceremony. It reminds me a lot of a few years ago with the whole Oscars So White controversy, where like luckily Chris Rock was there to just like rip the fucking Band-Aid off at the beginning of the ceremony, and then everything else was fine. But this feels like it's just gonna loom over the entire thing.
I do want to ask, they have now announced who's going to be hosting. Did you see that? Did you have
No, who's hosting?
Regina Hall, Amy Schumer, and Wanda Sykes.
I'm not mad at any of those, I think.
I'm not either. I do think that it is a cowardly move not to let the Muppets host, because if you're airing on ABC, then let Kermit host the Oscars.
Like you have the entirety of the Muppets host, and you have Wanda Sykes as the only human.
Yeah. Actually, any one of those 3 women would work as the only human in that scenario.
Yeah. No, like I'm an Amy Schumer apologist depending on the day and depending on like what of hers we're discussing.
I mean, she has said some dumb stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to be sort of less inclined to be mad at her than I am about the many white men in comedy who say dumb stuff all the time.
True. There is a double standard there. I thought she was great on the Comedy Central roast when she was coming up. I liked her first special. I thought Trainwreck, which she wrote, was very well written, and she pulled off the impossible task of making LeBron James likable. So, like, if that's not going to sway me, like nothing's going to.
Fair enough.
Martha, where can we find you?
You can find me on either of the podcasts that I co-host, Did You Do Your Homework and Love Ya, which update on the same feed. So if you find Did You Do Your Homework on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you will also get my teen cinema and rom-com podcast Love Ya on alternating weeks. I write a newsletter whenever I feel like it, which you can find at tinyletter.com/magicalmartha. And otherwise, if you just Google Magical Martha, that's my handle on all the social media, and it has been for like 20 years now.
I did remind myself just the other day where that originally came from. I was just like, what do these kids know about old Flash cartoons?
Magical Trevor.
Damn straight. Damn song got stuck in my head for the first time since college.
It lives rent free in my brain.
As it should, as it deserves to. I honestly don't see a problem. Martha, always a pleasure.
This was delightful.
Until next time, keep on watching the skies, ladies and gentlemen.